Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brendan and welcome back to the channel. I hope all of you guys are having a good morning, evening, wherever you guys are from. And today we had another red day in the crypto markets for the most part, with the exception of a few altcoins. But this was as to be expected. Crypto has taken a little bit of a downturn here recently, as we'll look at in just a second. But I want to cover some of the outliers before we get into the Bitcoin chart and why I think we're getting towards the end of this bear rally, or this bear market, so to say. Now, Dogecoin and Near Protocol have been two of the outliers in the top 20 cryptos that have been performing pretty well over here. We have seen that Bitcoin is also one of the better-ish performers, down just under 1% in the last week, whereas things like Ethereum and Avalanche are closer to being down around 5%. You know, this is a little bit of a sign that these DApp and these smart contract platforms are getting hit just a little bit harder, at least in the last week or so. But the exception here is Near, which has been performing beautifully. They've had a lot of really good publicity, and it's showing and reflecting on their chart. Dogecoin just having its routine, spontaneous pumps, but Shiba Inu not getting nearly as lucky. Now, going back to the Bitcoin chart, I want to explain what I think is happening over here because, as I did say just a second ago, I believe we're coming towards the end of this bear rally in this bear market. Again, I think there's a lot of evidence that really shows why. Now, what I have over here is this top line of resistance, which is where Bitcoin has been struggling each time it rallies to an all-time or a yearly high. It's had a really hard time breaking this mid $60,000 level. Anywhere from around $65,000 to $68,000 has been a really hard area for Bitcoin, and as we zoom out, this level over here, just around 40,000, has been one of the strongest areas of support for Bitcoin. And I'm going to outline this, excuse me, on a 3-day chart to make this just a little bit easier to see. Because what we can see and tell from this chart is that it was previously resistance, still used as resistance. When it's not resistance, it's support, and we're still using this as support. So I still see this as a really good sign for Bitcoin. That previous multi-level resistance is now being used as multi-level support. Now, on top of that, Bitcoin is still on top of its 200 EMA on this 3-day, and while it is below it on the daily, and we do have a death cross, I don't think that that's too bad. Because again, as we are seeing over here, there's more than one support level on Bitcoin right now. We have a pretty long-lasting rising form of support that we have bounced off of numerous times already. In fact, when crypto had its last flash crash this summer, this was the area that Bitcoin bottomed. Now that we're having another flash crash, I don't think that it's a coincidence that we are falling to this exact same support line once again. So with this doing this, not only do we have this level of $40,000 that we were just talking about, this horizontal support level, we also have this climbing support level that we have used for over a year now, and it has held. Now, besides all of this, I want to take a quick look at the MACD and the RSI over here, because these are a couple of other telling factors that we have. So just looking at what we have over here on this MACD, we have a form of triple bullish divergence, in the least double. And what we can also tell from the indicators and oscillators from our bands over here is that we are seeing lower levels of negative momentum come into Bitcoin upon every attempt to the downside over here. And this is what I'm seeing. We peaked over here, had a nice bounce, and now we peaked down here, or at least it looks like we peaked for this low. And this is going to be higher than we had previously been, which is telling me that the bears are actually losing momentum and strength in this area. And if this is true, we should see some sort of evidence to support this claim on both the candle chart and on the RSI, which is exactly what we're seeing. Now, the RSI has to be one of my favorite things to look at on this chart. And we're going to look at this on both a 3-day and a 1-day. But on the 1-day, we can see that we have a higher swing low next to a higher swing low against another higher swing low, and then most recently we've held this line. Again, this is a line going back to 2018. This has been a consistent level of bullish indication going back to 2018, when we ended that massive bear market that we had, of Bitcoin falling all the way down to $3,000. This has held true in predicting the bottoms since every downside since then. We are now expected to hit a level right around this line if we are going to end this bear market and stay consistent with this trend. And that's exactly where we fell to. We fell down to this area, we saw a great bounce, and this could very well be the bottom for Bitcoin. Now, is this guaranteed? Is this 100% proof without a doubt? Obviously no, it's Bitcoin, it's cryptocurrency. Anything can happen at any time. All you need is a piece of news or who knows what it might be, and this could all be invalidated. But I do like the history and the trend that this has here of this has been a spot on accurate representation since 2018. So I do like the fact that this has been consistent over time, and this is exactly where we would expect it to bounce at, which is what we're seeing. Now going over to the 3-day, we can also see a little bit of another thing. We also have a form of double bullish divergence over here again just zooming out on the macro here, we are seeing lower levels of negative momentum when Bitcoin is trying to have these big downturns. When we're having these big sell-offs and a lot of bearish volume coming in, we are seeing less than we had previously seen before, which is a really good sign for Bitcoin. The RSI is also reflecting that. This is another one that we have been using since 2018, just on a different time scale. We would expect that Bitcoin would bounce somewhere in this area. Why? Because ever since 2018, this has been a consistent trend line that has helped Bitcoin hold support. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but this would be the 4th time that this has been an accurate tool. Again, this is not 100% proof. It's not financial advice, but it has been consistent over the last 4 years or 5 years or so. So zooming out just once again, we would say that, all right, if there's support on the MACD, if there's indications on the MACD, if there's indications on the RSI, there should be something on the candle chart, which is also something that we're seeing. Not only does the MACD and the RSI look good, but we have multiple different support lines here for Bitcoin. Now, I know that there are the bears out there, which is perfectly fine and understandable. Again, Bitcoin is selling off, so there's going to be some fear in the market. But what does this mean if Bitcoin breaks here? And again, I think this is unlikely. But what does it mean if Bitcoin breaks 40,000 and then just starts tanking? Well, I kind of just gave it away, but I think that if Bitcoin does end up breaking this area, Bitcoin should really start tanking along with the altcoins even more violently than Bitcoin. But we should see a pretty hefty sell-off in Bitcoin if it breaks this $40,000 area, especially once it starts breaking 38, 39. It's going to be comparable to a free fall. I really don't see anything stopping Bitcoin too much until it gets to the lower end of the $30,000 range, if that is to happen. Again, we've seen support down here multiple different times over the course of 2021, even a little bit in 2020 or towards the end of 2020. Support over in here, support over in here, and I would imagine that this would be the area that Bitcoin would bounce if it decides to break through here and tank a little bit more to the downside. Now, if this does happen again, obviously a very, very bearish thing for Bitcoin. It's breaking multi-year supports, multi-year bullish divergence. If this does break, it would be pretty scary for Bitcoin and for a lot of cryptocurrencies. But I do see this as the 1% scenario. I think it's going to be really hard for Bitcoin to break so much support and so much history and kind of throw it out the window here, especially with the level of adoption that Bitcoin has gotten to over the course of 2021. I don't think that it deserves to have a price with the level of adoption that cryptocurrency has had to be reset to a level where it was back in 2020, 2019, 2018. I just don't see that being reasonable, and I don't think it would make very much sense fundamentally, putting aside the technicals. Now, I think the biggest thing here is that people are scared of this death cross. Now, we've talked about death crosses on this channel. They are, generally a good indicator, but they're not something that is, they're not something that's foolproof. We've saw this over here when Bitcoin had its death cross. It looked really scary. Bitcoin was indeed tanking, but this death cross happened on June 22nd, and then by July 22nd, a month later, Bitcoin was rallying up to new all-time highs, or well on its way to. Could this be the case over here? Well, if the same sort of scenario is to happen and we say, all right, well, this death cross happened around mid-January, January 10th, maybe by mid-February, we could see ourselves reversing, maybe even sooner than that if this is going to be anything like this chart over here. So if this is going to be comparable, again, the biggest things that we have to realize, and I'm realizing that my head's blocking part of the chart over here, so my apologies. But rewinding over, if we're comparing this to this, then what we have to recognize is that this is the initial wick down, the big old wick, much like we saw right here. We saw a slow trickle effect with Bitcoin forming some sort of consolidation, much like we're seeing right in here, consolidation. What I imagine happening over here is us doing a very similar thing. We're probably going to go sideways for a bit. We're going to see some bounces, but I don't think that we're going to break 38, 39K. If we break 38K, that's when I'm going to be a little bit more nervous for Bitcoin and crypto. But until that happens, I'm going to continue to stay very bullish here. I've been pretty adamant in the Discord that I have been buying this dip up. Not only Bitcoin, but a lot of the altcoins as well, especially as we enter into the summer. I want to make sure that I'm holding more Ethereum than I am currently holding. But that is going to be the end of this video. It's an absolute action-packed, information-packed episode. If you guys did like this content, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, join the Discord. There is a link to that in the description down below as well. And we'll probably have another video coming out here, either on the altcoin market, or maybe even just some of the resistance levels that Bitcoin has to conquer if it wants to break out to new all-time highs here in the coming quarter and in the coming year. But I appreciate all of you guys watching. If you did like this, again, smack that like button, smack the subscribe button, and I will see all of you in the next video.